Welcome to Bandit's Keep. I'm Daniel. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about magic. So if you've been watching the channel, it's probably no secret to you that I'm a fan of Vancian magic, kind of the traditional magic from old school games where you memorize and forget the spells. If you've read any Vance, this makes a lot of sense. If you haven't, maybe it doesn't. But even then, I didn't read any Vance until I was older, and I loved it when I was a kid because I liked the idea of the magic being almost like another item. You pick up a coil of rope, you pick up a charm person spell, you pick up a 10-foot pole, you pick up a read magic spell. You take it with you to the adventure, you use them up as you go, and there you go. That's just how I always thought of it, and it really worked for me. But I know a lot of people don't love that, so I've come up with several different magic systems throughout the year, and of course, it's always fun to mess with magic. And I've kind of combined three of the ideas I've had recently into a document, which I will share to you. You'll find a link to that in the show notes. But before we get to that, I want to thank my sponsor, Exter. They make these really super thin wallets. They have RFID protection, and very coolly, you can eject your cards out like this. There's a space in the front here for your money. And I've talked about this before. I live in New York City. You're walking around. You don't keep your wallet in your back pocket. That's the first thing they teach you. So God, I've been here for, I don't even want to say how long I've lived in New York. And I've just been jamming my money in my cards in my front pocket for so long. When they sent me this wallet, I was like, heck yeah, gave it a shot. And I've really enjoyed it. I went back to the leather one. I have the carbon fiber one as well, but my friend seems to have claimed it. So we'll see if I ever get that back. But I like the leather. And it's got this nice little kind of accessory on the back. We can kind of store extra stuff, receipts and that, and this thin little pocket here. I think you're supposed to use it, for the tracker, but I usually, when I park in like a garage or something, I slip the thin thing in there. It works for me that way. So I find this super useful. If I'm walking down the street and I need to get into my building that has a, one of those swipe things to walk in, I just boop, go like that, touch it too, and I'm good to go. So they're offering 35% discount to people who use my code. You'll find a link in the description. You guys can check it out. Follow the link, type in the code BANDIT, and get one of these for yourself. Okay, back to it. So the reason that I did this supplement this way is because when I'm reading a lot of books, or short stories, people describe magic a lot of different ways. And while I like the idea of Vancian magic being like an item, that is, like I said, you pack your rope, you pack your spell, I like different flavor. So I kind of put together a few of these. I will show you the document. You can just follow the link and download it. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I'm just going to kind of go over it in my thinking. So first of all, this is the title page, and I talk a little bit about what I'm doing. But the first thing here is symbol magic. So when I was a player in a game for Wolves in Winter Snow, I think is what the name of the game's called. It's like a prehistoric game. My character was a magic user, and I had the Purify Water spell. But basically, I had the spell. It was inscribed or written inside a cave wall. So I had to go to this cave to memorize the spell. So what I told the GM was, well, the way I do it is I don't Vancian magic it and I study it. I actually look at the paintings on the wall and I paint them on my body. And then when I go to cast the spell, I spit on my hands and I rub it out and, or whatever. I use dirt to scrub it off. So I had this kind of cool ritual thing that I was imagining my character was doing. Again, it didn't really change the mechanics of it, but it made it more fun. So you could just do it that way, or I've kind of mechanized it a little bit to kind of make it a little different. So if you want to use different types of magic in your world, they got a little bit different flavor. Basically, you still need to go to where the magic is painted, so a cave or possibly a giant tapestry. It's important that they're big. It's also important that you're using some kind of special pigments because the pigments cost gold, and it takes time to basically make them. The reason why this is a factor is because unlike a regular magic user, you're not limited to the number of spells that you can memorize. Basically, if you have enough time and enough gold, you can sit into your cave and paint all over your body. Well, you are limited a little bit, but I'll get to that in a second. But you can paint a bunch of times. So normally a first level magic user might only have that one sleep spell, but your symbol magician, after they've gone on a couple of adventures and they've got some gold in their pocket, they could write the sleep spell on their body 3-4 times, maybe by the time they're second level because they have that much gold. Now, they are somewhat limited because it's based on your intelligence. That's the total number of spells that you can paint onto your body. So this will also cap you at the top, right? Because at some point, if you do get to a really high level, you can actually memorize more spells. If you only have a 9 or 10 intelligence, that's where you're cut off. Whereas a standard magician might be able to cast 15 spells or something like that when they get to the very top, when they're 14th level. I didn't look at the number of spells, but you can cast a lot of spells when you get up to that level. So this will be a bit of a restriction, unless you have a really super high intelligence. Now, the other thing to remember here is that because you must be in the presence of your symbol in order to, put the spells on your body, if you're doing something like a hex crawl, which often happens, especially at higher levels, you're going to paint all these spells on your body, and then you're going to go out, and you might be gone for a week, and you can't just rememorize your spells like a normal Vancian magician would be able to because you're not near the cave or the tapestries. So that's like you're balancing here. Like many things, like the elf in a way, right? It's more powerful probably at lower levels, and it becomes more of a hindrance at higher levels. So I think it could be really interesting in a campaign. I haven't used it exactly like this, but it feels pretty balanced to me, and I'm, fairly experienced with the system. All right, so this second one I've been wanting to use for a while, and I think I'm actually going to incorporate an NPC with this in my OD&D campaign, just to see how it flies. This is Fetish magic. That is, you're imbuing an object with the spell. So the way this works is kind of similar to the other one in the sense that you take the time to create these fetishes, and then you destroy them either with an action or words to let loose the spell, which means you're not limited to the number of spells, especially at low level, as long as you have cash, right? This is 200 gold pieces. So if you go into a dungeon, you come back with 1,000 gold pieces, you could theoretically make 5 spells, right? And now you've got these 5 spells, which might seem overpowered, right? But of course, if you cast it all 5 times and you don't get any more gold, you can't memorize any more spells. And the other restriction here is that the fetish magician doesn't just get more spells every level. For them, they must quest for them. I think that's important. And they actually start with a certain number of spell levels to begin, right? 1d4 plus 1. This means that if you get lucky, you might start with 5 spell levels, and you might get like a couple of first level spells and a second level spell or something like that. And I guess 3 of the first level spells and a second level spell, or 2 seconds and a first. But if you're a brand new magician and you're broke and you've got a 3rd level spell that costs $600 per casting, 600 gold pieces, I should say, per casting, that's not going to be that convenient for you to be using it. So again, it gives some freedom of the character, the player really, to decide how they want to run this magician. It gives a little more flavor. It allows them to access some higher level spells at the beginning if they want, but with some restrictions based on, gold basically is your restriction there. All right, and this third one is basically another version of Psionics. So I think I've had like a couple of, maybe even 3 versions of Psionics I've talked about in the past. This is another version of it. I like Psionics. I like innate casting. At first I was going to make this like more like a sorcerer that you get in 5th edition where it's like innate, and I guess that's kind of what it is, but I think why would it be innate? Like what reason? And so Psionics, that's the easiest way to do it. So the Psion is interesting because, in order to get the right flavor for Psionics, they don't lose their spell when they cast it. And they're not limited to how many times they can cast. So in order to make that balance out and thinking about the fiction of Psionics and it's like, I've decided to make it a roll to cast. And what I used here was more or less the system that I used for the skill checks using the Clerics vs. Undead. And I, took the advice of many people who wrote comments and stuff that said, hey, why start at 7? You can have it go lower. So when we look at this chart here, you can see that depending on the level of the magic user, their chance of casting the spell, might be as a first level magician casting a first level spell, they got to roll a 9 or better on 2d6. And those who have played enough know that's not guaranteed. It's actually not easy. But when you get to 7th level, you only need to roll a 3 or better, which means you're basically guaranteed to cast that spell. So your 7th level magician with their Charm Person spell can just be casting it left and right, and then you get powerful psionics. So it's pretty cool. Again, now in this case, they're weaker at the beginning and probably more powerful later. So it's a trade-off and a balance. And I think this really can work well. There's a few other little details in here, like if you roll double 1s, you can get knocked out and you lose the spell. If you roll double 6s, some good and bad stuff can happen. And you can check all that out by just downloading the document. Again, I'll put a link in the show notes. And for those who are interested, I'll be at GaryCon this year. I'm running a few OD&D variation games. I'm running a couple of other kind of board gamey / miniature games. So should be really fun. And if you don't get to one of my games and you just see me there, come say hi. Last time we had a great time on Wednesday night. If you're around Wednesday night in the lobby bar, check me out. I've got a great dwarven drinking game, and some craziness might ensue. So if you're going to GaryCon, come see me. In any case, if you're not going to GaryCon and you just want to chat, go ahead and join my Discord server. You'll find a link to that in the show notes. You'll also find a link to my Patreon. I got some amazing Patreons. Thank you for supporting me. I'll throw their names up on the screen. You should also like the video, share it around, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around, all that kind of cool stuff you're supposed to do on YouTube so that the algorithms will share my videos everywhere. And I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.